Hello! The man in the expensive suit is a successful realtor named Stan Minton. The sly man is preparing to close another big real estate deal in an African-American suburb for an elderly woman whom he skillfully manages to make excited about living in a dangerous neighborhood. As soon as the enthusiastic old lady starts to sign the documents, police officers burst into the office of the inventive agent. They accuse Stan of fraud and put him in handcuffs. But even this unpleasant scene is not able to dispel the charms of the cunning salesman, and the old client triumphantly puts her signature on the necessary documents. What punishment awaits the dishonest realtor, and how will his life values change when he must answer before the law? From his fancy office, Stan goes straight to court, where Madam Foreman, the jury forewoman, suddenly pronounces a guilty verdict on the goofy realtor. Outraged by this unexpected twist of fate, Stan urges his lawyer to bribe the judge in an attempt to avoid a prison sentence of 3 to 5 years. The honest attorney flatly refuses to do this, and Stan immediately finds another lawyer for himself. It's now Lou Popper who arrives at the reading of the verdict with the man. The corrupt lawyer has eventually managed to bribe Judge Perry, but nonetheless, Stan Minton only gets a 6-month delay of his sentence. The man will still have to go to jail, and Popper explains the law of justice to the hapless convict.
You rip off enough people, eventually you're going to go to jail.
Stan and his wife Mindy go out for dinner at a restaurant. The man hastily shovels slices of grilled steak into his mouth, eager to eat as much good food as possible before he is forced to go on a prison diet. While the resilient Mindy talks enthusiastically about what they should do so that she doesn't bore to death without her beloved husband for the next 3 years, the girl once again begs Stan to have a baby, to which she once more receives a firm refusal from her husband. Confident that a child will interfere with their idle life in a luxurious mansion. Offended by such a statement, Mindy runs away from Stan in tears, leaving him to finish the steaks by himself. Crushed by the prospects of the near future, Stan goes to a local bar. There, already tipsy and emboldened, he strikes up a conversation with a tough-looking biker with a tattoo signifying he has served time in prison. The former inmate tells the hero about the horrors of being behind bars, including forced physical intimacy among men, which pretty Stan certainly won't be able to avoid.
Little dude like you, be an easy mark.
For the crook to protect himself from a disappointing life in prison, the biker recommends him to join a gang. But it turns out that Stan has no common interest with any of the popular groups, and his tattoo, which should in theory give him the image of a hardened criminal, will turn out to be a ticket to hell for him. Terrified and completely drunk, Stan returns home. In the morning, the previous day seems like a bad dream, but Mindy reminds him that he is really going to prison in 6 months. After suffering a bit of a tantrum, Stan gathers his thoughts. Determined not to whine and to prepare thoroughly for his upcoming imprisonment, the man takes decisive action. For starters, he visits a tattoo shop to cover up the adorable tattoo on his forearm and get a new and terrifying one between his buttocks, which should scare off those who want to have fun with him. To improve his physical condition, Stan goes to karate training. However, he treats the sessions half-heartedly and makes no effort at all. Embarrassed by the fact that he is just a yellow belt, the arrogant upstart asks Master Cho to arrange a fight against an opponent to move up in rank. The fight ends in complete failure for the man, and Stan, in rage, pounces on his opponent, using illegal punches. This results in Master Cho throwing him out and landing some powerful strikes as his last goodbye. A strange man with a cigarette between his teeth is watching the scene unfold from the back alley. The old man mocks Stan while demonstrating what he himself is capable of. Impressed by the power of his strikes, Stan brings the master home and tells his wife that he will train him for the rest of his time until imprisonment. The next morning, while Stan and Mindy are still in bed, the protagonist wakes up from blood dripping on his forehead. It turns out that the master has brought him breakfast in bed, a piece of fresh, raw liver. After breakfast, the master makes the hero work out with a boxing dummy all morning, while his wife prepares lunch as per the mentor's instructions. A disgusting smoothie made of eggs, fish oil, bovine pancreas, and tongue. The next harsh test for the soon-to-be prisoner is a beating with a burning stick, which the caring wife tries to prevent, though the determined Stan does not allow her to do so. Another day, the man has to endure a painful nipple strengthening procedure that will help him resist the common technique of twisting them, while Stan selflessly carries out all of his mentor's instructions to avoid being physically harassed in prison. Mindy feels very lonely and complains to her husband about his lack of attention at dinner. In response, Stan wakes his wife in the middle of the night shouting in panic that criminals have broken into their house and are going to do various obscenities to her. Terrified out of her wits, Mindy rushes into her husband's arms in tears, preparing for the worst, when Stan suddenly tells her that this is a practical joke he has arranged to make Mindy finally understand his feelings and fears about his impending imprisonment. Angered by this kind of rudeness, The girl hurriedly rushes to the dressing room and collects her belongings in a suitcase. Having expressed her grievances on the way to the car and demanding a divorce, Mindy disappears from view. The Master and Stan continue their martial arts training, and the day comes when the Master is about to teach Stan a powerful technique called the Finger of Death. The hero chooses the middle finger as his invincible weapon, after which the Master demonstrates a crushing blow that pierces through a wooden board and invites his apprentice to do the same. Confident of success, Stan fearlessly swings with all his might. After putting the poor man's finger bone back in place, the Master continues his intensive training, forcing Stan to do bench presses, punch a brick with his fist, and do weighted squats over sharp blades in the ground, while also teaching him kung fu techniques. With each passing day, the man's progress from grueling training and testing becomes more evident, and now he not only tolerates beating, but can even strike back at the Master. At the end of all this hard work, Stan also finally masters the legendary Finger of Death technique. In the evening, at the restaurant with Lou Popper, the couple celebrate the completion of Stan's amazing training, when the Master suddenly declares that the hero is only his second best student, and notes that the first best student, using his acquired powers and knowledge, has gone to the side of evil. The next day, Master and Lou Popper are seeing off the now fearless Stan to Oakburg Prison. The con man rides the bus with the other inmates, one of whom he immediately fights back at the first sign of harassment, and on inspection, he displays a terrifying tattoo that frightens even the guards.
It's like an alien, staring into my soul.
Stan is placed in a cell with an inmate named Larry Shorts. The cellmates quickly find common ground, and Short becomes the hero's guide to the prison gangs, among which are even Scientologists. With the help of his partner, Stan identifies the main troublemaker in terms of physical intimacy. He turns out to be the Big Raymond, who has already pinned down yet another victim, a handsome kid with long hair. To cement his status as the insane felon who can't be touched with a finger or anything else, Stan fearlessly gets into an argument with the terrifying thug. For his own misfortune, Raymond falls for the provocation and is shamefully beaten in front of all the inmates. Then, after beating all assailants on the very first day, our protagonist confidently secures the status of the unconditional leader and gets the nickname of Big Stan. Minton is summoned by the warden, Francis Gask. Unexpectedly, he offers the prisoner a cigar and a brandy in order to gain his favor. It turns out that Stan got into this particular prison for a reason. The warden has made an effort to get a professional realtor on his side. Gask is trying to realize an elaborate plan, according to which he, together with private investors, is going to build luxurious houses on the prison site, in exchange for Stan's participation in the execution of the real estate transaction. After Gask gets rid of the prison, the chief offers him early release. The con man immediately agrees to these terms. Stan is working on the warden's project and real estate documents when Gask introduces him to his partner, Mr. Dang, who is a member of the prison board and also one of the private investors. The modest-looking man is actually a member of the Vietnamese mafia, as is evident from the tattoos on his fingers. While the protagonist carefully examines the documents, Gask and Dang happily watch through the window as the furious inmates put up merciless fights.
Well, give me a few more weeks. I'll even have them readier.
Later that night in his cell, Stan writes a frank letter to Mindy. In it, the man confesses his love, and tears well up in the girl's eyes. Though the touched Mindy is comforted by the Master, who turns up next to her in his home robe and gently puts his arms around her shoulders. An odd conversation between Warden Gask and Mr. Dang about the need for beatings and stabbings among the prisoners does not escape Stan's attention, and using his rock-solid authority, he decides to establish a new order among the prisoners. At a general meeting, Big Stan announces the rules, which completely exclude all abuse and harassment, and the big musclemen obediently accept his orders. That same day, a cellmate hands Stan a letter from Mindy saying she's coming on a date, and the excited man begins counting down the days until the long-awaited rendezvous. Among the prisoners, meanwhile, there is an atmosphere of mutual understanding and goodwill that reconciles even the once fiercest of opponents. The day of Stan and Mindy's long-awaited meeting arrives, which they spend in the family visiting room. Meanwhile, Warden Gask observes indignantly from his office his obedient inmates in the prison yard.
It looks like a nursery school picnic out there.
It's Minton.
Infuriated by the new order, which could completely ruin his plan to sell the prison, Gask orders the guards to immediately bring in Minton, who was with Mindy at the time. The man is delighted with the past date, to which the girl suddenly informs him that it was the Master who taught her the new tricks. Dumbfounded by this news, Stan suspects his wife of cheating and furiously promises to kick the old man's ass before the guard takes him to the prison chief. In Gask's office, an unpleasant conversation awaits Big Stan. The warden lays out his plan as clearly as possible, In a week, the board of directors will come to the prison for an inspection, and during their visit, there will be an armed prison riot, which will force the guards to open fire on the criminals. The sudden riot will frighten the board members, and they will decide to sell the prison to a Vietnamese family. After which, Gask himself and all those involved in the project of building luxury houses on the land will live happily ever after. Francis makes it clear to Stan that if the new order he has established prevents the execution of the cunning plan, Stan will have to face Mr. Dang himself. And if everything goes smoothly, the prisoner will get an early release. Disturbed by a nightmare about losing Mindy, Stan asks the guards to tell the warden that he agrees to the deal. That same day, the man stops restraining criminals, and chaos returns to the prison. The board of directors shows up at the prison with an inspection. The cunning Gask introduces Stan Minton to the board as a model prisoner who will visit the parole board today, and the warden immediately leads him there. At this time, the prisoners are released into the yard. Each of them is given a concealed weapon at the entrance. At the same time, the committee decides to release Stan from prison immediately, but the man's mind is filled with pleasant memories of his new friends, who may soon fall victim to Gask's treacherous plan. Stan realizes that even for the sake of his own happy life, he cannot betray his comrades, so he deliberately disrupts his parole by saying horrible things to the commission, causing him to be frantically kicked back to his cell. On his way back, Stan is met by his master and Mindy, whom he is hostile to because of their suspected relationship and his wife's infidelity. The wise mentor, however, makes him understand the fallacy of his judgments.
Addiction to cigarettes made me impotent. I've had...
Encouraged by this news, Stan sets out to save his friends and rushes straight into the warden's office. But instead of Gask, discovers Mr. Dang is waiting for him in ambush and turns out to be the master's #1 apprentice. As Dang mercilessly beats Stan, the situation among the prisoners in the yard heats up and nears its finish, while happy Francis pours champagne for the commissioners, preparing to see a merciless fight.
Are those weapons?
The prisoners, armed and with a violent attitude, gather in the center of the courtyard to start a riot. The gangs collide head-on, preparing to attack each other, and Gask orders the wardens to prepare to shoot. Big Stan, meanwhile, manages to finish off Dang with the legendary Finger of Death and rushes into the yard to stop the imminent confrontation. But as soon as Stan finds himself on the street and the ruthless Gask orders to open fire to kill, the friendly criminals, to rhythmic music, suddenly begin to perform a passionate dance instead of fighting, which thrills the prison board members. The warden's devious plan goes completely awry. 3 years later, having honestly served his time, Stan says goodbye to his new friends and goes back to freedom, where Mindy, the master, and Mindy Jr. are still waiting for him. As always, you'll find the name of the movie in the description of the video. And let us know in the comments, did you guess that the prisoners would mess up the warden's plan even without Stan's interference? And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next awesome retelling. Watch an interesting movie in a few minutes without rewind? Easy!
We got a great looking audience tonight.
The Sweet Popcorn channel has a mega convenient format waiting just for you. Short retellings of movies, from auteur films to Hollywood blockbusters. Pick up your unlimited ticket by clicking the subscribe button.